Welcome back to the Backcountry Rookies podcast. As we continue on with this essential gear series, I think there's one thing that gets left out a lot when gearheads start talking about gear and our backpacks and our boots and just kind of all of the really cool things that we can buy. I personally think education gets left out, and it's probably the most crucial piece of essential gear that we have. So I have Corey Jacobsen on today, and we're going to talk about the University of Elk Hunting. And I doubt if Corey needs a lot of introduction, but I'm going to let him talk about himself and kind of a little bit of his background, and then we've got some topics that we're going to cover. Welcome to the show, Corey.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to add to what you just said, and I feel 100% that you are the greatest piece of gear, the greatest weapon that you take into the woods as a hunter, and I love the concept of keeping our education as a part of that gear list.
I think it's important. To me, just having the education and some old real tree camo is probably way better than looking the part but not knowing the first thing about what you're doing. So
Absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about the University of Elk Hunting. Where did it come from? Where did you start it? How did that develop?
Yeah, so I was blessed. I grew up in elk country. I grew up hunting elk from a young age. Before I was old enough to hunt, I was, going out in the field with friends, parents, everything. And so I got kind of a front row education from a very young age. We lived where we had elk out our back door, so I could walk out and hunt before I could drive. I was getting home from school and grabbing my bow and going hunting. Um, but I wasn't good at it. I'm like most people at 12, 13, 14 years old. It takes a while to gain the experience, to gain the knowledge, to gain the confidence, all those different things.
We're
Um,
43 years old.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So it took me a while to figure it out. And I still, I'm not saying I have it all figured out by any means, because I don't. But once I started realizing, hey, there's a process that works. There is a series of things that I've found that work to provide success as an elk hunter. And so after, I've been elk hunting now for over 35 years, and I've realized how much I took for granted. Once I learned how to do it, it was basically, I was confident. I'd take a week off from work, I'd go out, and I expected to fill my tag and fill the freezer. And I kind of, for probably 8 or 10 years there, took that for granted and forgot about everything that got me to that point. And as I started doing seminars and different things, I run the website elk101.com. We published a magazine on elk hunting. I've just really made elk hunting kind of the centerpiece of everything I do from a business standpoint, I guess. And as I started going and doing these seminars, I realized that I had skipped over that learning curve as I was talking at these seminars. And I had assumed that people had the same level of experience, the same number of days in the field, the same opportunities I had had. And I realized I was really, really mistaken. And so I went back through and it really gave me a chance to stop and say, okay, what do I do? From start to finish, what's important? What goes into this? And I love to see other people be successful. I love to see just them, the excitement and the passion for success. And it doesn't have to be just in hunting, in anything. If there's success, people are excited and that's contagious. But when you can take my passion for elk hunting, as well as a desire to see people be successful and couple those together, it's really awesome. And so that's kind of where my desire to not just share my passion for elk hunting, but share it in an educational way that would increase others' success, get them more excited about them, let them taste success, because then they become a mentor to somebody else. And I just really think that, we every once in a while, some of us who share some of these life lessons and share this education, we take a little bit of heat from those who are, they were brought up not to share, and things are sacred and you need to go learn on your own. And we're going to ruin elk hunting because we're sharing all the secrets. And, I don't feel that way. I feel the more that we can educate people and make them better, more ethical, more responsible elk hunters, the better off we as an elk hunting community are. and the better off the next generations are going to be. And so that's kind of where that platform and that desire to not only share a passion for elk hunting, but share it from an educational standpoint, which led to creating the University of Elk Hunting.
Yeah. And so we'll dive into University of Elk Hunting. And so the way that you have it broke out, I think it's super easy to follow. And it hits on so many key topics. I believe you call them modules,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it's broke out, and you're constantly evolving it, and it's always growing, and you're always adding to it, which I think is great. Um, can you touch on some of those modules, some of the well, they're all critical. I get they're all
Yeah.
pretty crucial.
Yeah.
Maybe can you just give a brief overview of sort of how it's laid out and what people can expect if they purchase the program and what they're going to see?
Yeah. So, if you sign up, you have immediate access to everything. So it doesn't, it's not like you get an email every week with a new module. You can go in and you can skip over 10 of the modules and just get right into the calling tactics if you wanted. But it's laid out, it's very chronological in the fact that it starts out with the preparation aspects, then it gets into the in the field or the performance aspects, and then it goes into the post success. So, I kind of break it out into those 3 P's. You've got preparation, performance, and post success. And, in preparation, it's things like planning. For somebody that's never done more than just thought that'd be cool to go elk hunting someday, there's a module that helps you plan it, to set your expectations, to understand how tags work, how you obtain tags, how you can use resources and different things to decide what state to go to. Each state is broken out. Each of the 10 Western elk states are broken out with just a summary of there's a lot of over-the-counter opportunity. This state is mostly limited controlled hunts, the pricing, what the license and tags cost. So starting clear at that point and then get into scouting, e-scouting, different resources. There's a full chapter within that module just on using Google Earth. And so, scouting from a remote location, I'll walk you through and show you how to find elk without even having to go to elk country. And then from there, there's other resources, fire maps, different things that I use to help with that e-scouting. And then there's a chapter on actual boots on the ground. From there, you get into things like physical conditioning, which again, you are a very important piece of gear. And if your gear is worn out or not in good condition, it's not going to perform as well. So there's 5 different workouts that we've created in there, and they're everything from heavy lifting at a gym to putting on a backpack and stepping up on a cooler in your garage. And so really fits all different lifestyles and time frames. We get into gear. We talk about essential gear for elk hunting. We talk about what's needed. If you're a whitetail hunter coming from back east, what can you use that you already have, and what's going to be specific that you might need to pick up. I share my exact gear list of what's in my backpack, what I use for bivvy hunting, what I use for weapons, everything. And then the last part of the next one would be more of a transition, but the next module after that is on using elk calls. So it's not anything to do with technique as far as tactics for calling. It's starting at square zero and helping you become a proficient and confident elk caller using diaphragm elk calls. The next part is the elk hunting knowledge, which kind of transitions that preparation and performance, because a lot of that knowledge is going to come in the field, but it's probably my favorite module just because there's so much detailed elk behavior in there that's really important for understanding how they move, why they move, how they use their senses. That really gives a hunter an advantage. I think there's a quote that I used in there, and I'm going to butcher it, and I don't remember who said it, but it's something about if you want to win a war, you need to know your enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And, with elk hunting knowledge, if you want to go out and go one-on-one against an elk, if you don't understand an elk at all, you're going to have a really hard time doing that. And so, it's going to come with being in the field and seeing something happen, but having that knowledge ahead of time is going to be important because you're going to be able to really quickly adapt and understand what's happening.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to the calls also. So you also have an online or a YouTube series where you on your Elk 101 YouTube page where you
Mm-hmm.
actually walk people through the different types of calls, and cow mews, and how to use diaphragm calls. And I think that's a really, really good series that you did. It kind of breaks it down from not even really knowing which direction to put the diaphragm in your mouth to creating sounds and bugles, and it's very well done. And I like the way that it starts out small and works up to bigger, better stuff. So
Definitely.
that
And that,
that's a good
the YouTube
resource.
series you mentioned, that's a free resource. Anybody can go out there, and it's very similar to what's in the course. The course takes it, a couple steps farther, but out there on the YouTube, yeah, if you've never used a diaphragm, or even if you have, I've had several people message and just say, I've struggled for 10 years and just thought I was a terrible caller. I started back over at square zero and followed your process and using calls and sound great and have confidence in them now.
Hmm.
And I think maybe backing up just a little bit, I am an engineer. I've got a degree in mechanical engineering. So I am a very lineal thinker, and I'm also a very process oriented thinker. And so I break things down into those steps. So as you go through the course, I think that I probably simplify things into their most simple form and break it down and walk through each of those processes. And I think that that is a benefit to trying to teach somebody something, is to be able to break it down, understand it at the simplest level, and then start adding on to it. And the course is great because you can take somebody that's never hunted before, they can start at the beginning, and they can really have a good understanding and a great chance of being successful when they go elk hunting. But you can also take somebody that's elk hunted for 15 years and even seen mediocre success, or some maybe inconsistent success, and put them in it. And a lot of stuff's going to be basic and review for them. But as they go through it, it builds up and it takes them from where they are and moves them up closer to more consistent success. So it's, the way it is set up, it's very chronological. You start in one point and you go through and build. Or if you are one of those experienced elk hunters, you can skip the things like planning an elk hunt or e-scouting if you already know that. If you want to learn more about how to use Google Earth to e-scout, or you want to learn to be a better caller, or you want to learn some advanced calling tactics and strategies, then you take those portions and add them to what you already know. So it is a dynamic thing that's continually changing, but at the same time, as you change, I think more components of it become available to you to continue adding to your repertoire.
Yeah. And then, so the next part, you said there's preparation. What was the second P?
Performance. So in the field, what you do in the field once you get out there. And so we start with locating elk. How do you locate elk? You've e-scouted, maybe even boots on the ground, but that doesn't tell you there's going to be elk there the second week of September when you're going to be there. So we talk about how you locate elk in the field during the season. We talk about the importance of setting up on the elk. So we're talking at this point more of a rut-based hunt where we're calling elk in, getting in and setting up on the elk is really, I think, probably the most critical component to being able to call an elk in and get a shot at an elk. So we talk about setup, we talk about different tactics as far as a two-person calling setup. If you're hunting solo, we've got a chapter on solo hunting. Talk about why it's important to get close, the psychology of an elk and how getting up close to him before you engage in calling is far more efficient than trying to call from 300 or 400 yards back. Or if you just hear an elk bugle, you just drop right there and start calling. Well, it's not going to be very efficient. And so we talk about not just what you need to do, but why you need to do it. And I think that knowing the why is so much more important than just knowing the how, because you're going to be able to apply so many different tactics and strategies in so many different situations when you understand the why. So talk a lot about that. From that, we go into actual calling strategies. So, basics, breaking it down into the simplest form. What's my go-to calling strategy? And then going into, okay, that strategy didn't work on this bull. Now what do we do? And several, I call them audibles, but several different things you can use, different sequences, different strategies when your go-to strategy isn't working. Next one is just some miscellaneous things. We talk about a lot of supplements to elk calling. So things like decoys, just different things that we can add, raking a tree, a lot of different things. If a bull is tight-lipped and we can't get him to bugle, what can we do in those situations? And then a chapter on what do you do if you don't even want to use calls, whether you're listening for elk to bugle or whether you're just 100% spot and stalk or hunting from a tree stand over water. All those are in there. And then one of the cool modules in that section is common elk hunting challenges. And so we look at non-elk related challenges like weather, fires, hunting pressure, predators, and talk about how they affect elk and what we can do to overcome those. And then a full chapter on elk related challenges. So densities of elk, populations of elk, demographics of the herd, bull to cow ratios, how they affect the elk behavior, how they affect the vocalization of the elk, and what we can do to overcome it. And so that wraps up the in the field performance portion of the online course.
I think it's really good too for new hunters like me, or even guys that have been doing it 10 or 12 years or whatever. You've done 35 years of building on that. So when you have to call those audibles that you mentioned earlier, those are tried and true, I guess. They're things that you've had to do in order to get that bull to talk to you, or it, something didn't work and it's worked for you, right? Those audibles have worked and you've put them to the test. So if those are really good for guys like me to hear, instead of having to spend 35 years learning it on my own, I have a resource where it's already been tested, right? You've already used them, you've already done them. And that's one of the things that I think is great about the course, is that you have there's that much knowledge that's been tested, that's put in there. And
For sure.
I'm assuming you probably had contributors that helped out also. So it's not just you, is it? I mean, did you have other
Well,
people that?
yeah, and so I mean, the course is basically, and we'll get into, there's actually another in the field portion that got added after the course was created, and that was a outside contributor. Randy Newberg created a module on post rut and late season elk hunting, because that's kind of his forte, finding elk in that post rut late season, hunting them. And so he created a whole module. I think there's 3 or 4 chapters in that talk about how to find them, how to hunt them, different techniques for glassing, different techniques for just locating the elk. And so, yeah, Randy came in as a contributor on that. And I've rifle hunted. I've hunted after the rut, but it's certainly not something that I feel I'm at a level where I could teach other people at the level that this course does teach. And so I went and found who I thought was the best at that, and had them provide that information. Beyond that, though, I've had a lot of hunting partners over the years, and they have all contributed in some way to my success and my growth as an elk hunter. And so they're referenced throughout the course. We talk about hunts we've been on, things I've learned there. And I think, as you mentioned, talking about those different calling tactics or the audibles, a lot of them I accompany with video, actual call-ins from elk that we've done where we've had to do that, hey, this bull isn't coming in, so I had to resort to this method, and here's a video of it working. And so, we don't just, that's the beauty of the digital age we're in. We can show it in video, we can write it so that, those who read and comprehend better can read it and then see it on video and understand. We've got the full courses in an audiobook, so it's all included. You get to listen to it if you want to. You can download the audio and listen to it in your truck as you're driving to work or driving to elk camp. We've got the app, so in the field we have a mobile app, so all of this information you can go offline and take to elk camp at 13,000 feet with no cell service, no internet or anything, and still have access to everything in the field. So it's this age that we're in, when it comes to education and being able to share information like this, we've never had an opportunity or a platform like this in the past.
It's
Pretty
so easy
exciting.
to get to. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just all right there. So no reason not to have it.
Yeah.
You even there's a downloadable version of a how to do the gutless method. Sorry, I was at a loss there of the method, but the gutless method on how
Mm-hmm.
to handle. Well, you're probably about to talk about that, I guess, in the third portion.
That's a
But
great lead in.
yeah, there you go. How'd you like that transition?
There you
So,
go.
all
So
right.
yeah, the third portion is the post success. And that is, I think, especially for somebody who's new to elk hunting, the goal is to harvest an elk, to kill an elk, to put your tag on an elk. But there's a lot that comes after that. You know, the second that you pull the trigger or shoot the arrow and you walk up on the elk, you're far from done.
It
And I
doesn't
think
just stop with pictures for Instagram.
no, I think
No,
that's
that's
a
not the
part
end
of
of
it.
it. Huh?
And we do talk about that. You know, one of the things I talk about in there is before we get into the field care of meat, it's, you know, the taking care of the animal to get good pictures and how to do that. But backing up just a bit, one of the most overlooked skills that I feel contributes to success is the ability to track and follow a blood trail. And especially for an archery hunter, you know, when you shoot an elk with an arrow, you're looking to kill that elk from massive blood loss. And elk are big, tough animals. And sometimes, depending on where you hit them, it can take a while. Even with a good shot, it can take a while for that elk to die. And he might walk off 400 yards, 800 yards, a mile. And being able to keep on the track, being able to follow a sparse or non existent blood trail is super important. And that's probably my favorite module in this section of the course, just because it goes into, we have diagrams on the full elk anatomy. So we have the skeletal system overlaid with the circulatory system, uh, everything. So you can see where bones are, you can see where vitals are. We have pictures of, you know, we dissected an elk and we took pictures and measurements to show this is your kill zone. This is where you want to hit. This is the size of it. This is what you do if you want to shoot frontal. Here's the thoracic opening. This is the size of an area you have to hit in, and here's where you want to aim. And so we really broke down the anatomy, the aiming, the vitals, and then talked about if you hit an elk in the back leg, here's the blood trail you're going to get. Here's the vitality of the hit. Here is what to expect. If you shoot one high, here's what to expect from the blood trail. Here is how you follow it. Here is, you know, do you back out for 4 hours? Do you get right on the blood trail? All of that's included in that module. And then we get into what you mentioned, the field care, which we talk about the gutless method. We show, I mean, right in the field, we take an elk, we break it down, we skin it. We have diagrams that show you where to make all the cuts. So if you want to save the cape for taxidermy, you pull out the app, the picture's right there. Okay, make a cut right across here, come up here, all that. The gutless method, we show how to do that. We quarter the elk, load it into a pack. We bone out an elk, so we show how to take the meat off of the bones to pack out. So everything you need to know to be prepared to get that elk off the mountain is there. And then a module on packing an elk, you know, the different methods of packing, how to safely do it. We weighed quarters of elk and took average weights and kind of said, okay, here's what to expect to be on your back if you're going to pack a whole elk out. And, you know, set realistic expectations before you go in 9 miles and realize it's 85 degrees and you have to pack 300 pounds of meat out of the backcountry.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where we end the post success section.
Those are all very. I like. I think you're right too. That section about tracking an animal, it's often overlooked, and we're going to do a podcast a little bit closer to hunting season that's just dedicated to tracking. What's an arrow look like if you get a stomach shot, or what's it look like with lung blood on it, and just kind of touch all of that because I think that's important. A lot of people will go into the field and they take that shot and then they think, oh, now what? You know, now what am I supposed to do? And that wasn't a very good shot. Do I back out? Do I push the animal? So yes, that's a very, very good
And just
portion.
simple things, you know, as far as at the shot, being quiet, watching the elk to see what it does. Does it run out 100 yards and stop and look back? And, you know, do you need to be quiet and back out? We had an elk in Arizona a few years back that I shot, and it ran up the draw, and we got really quiet and listened. And fortunately, we could hear its hooves on rocks. And when we went up there to follow it, there was no blood trail. And in Arizona, that sand and just, it's really hard to track an elk. And had we not heard the hooves on the rocks, when we heard that, we knew the elk went up this hillside. It's the only hillside with rocks on it. It had to go up there. We climbed that hill, got to the top, and the elk was laying there dead 100 yards from the end of the hillside. But had we not heard that, had we been talking or whispering and not really paying attention, we would have continued up the draw. probably thought I missed the elk 'cause there literally was no blood right there, and went in the absolute wrong direction. It didn't make any sense for the elk to climb straight up a hill from the shot and run 300 yards up there and die. Would have been the last place we looked. So just little things like that, even somebody that's elk hunted for 10 years might not think about that, or might not understand or recognize how vital that can be in some situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Earlier, I mentioned that the course is constantly evolving, and this year you've added a couple of new, I don't know if it's modules or just additions to the modules. Can you talk about those two new ones that you've got?
Yeah. So one of the new ones I talked about, Randy Newberg, he's got the whole post-rut and late season. That was an addition after we launched the course. It's been a year or two ago that we added that. And then this year we've added the Hunting Roosevelt Elk module. And it took me, we're 3.5 years into the course now, 4 years, something like that. I'd never hunted Roosevelt elk before, and I knew a lot of people that had, and based on conversations with them, I knew there wasn't a lot of difference in how to hunt them, but I knew there was enough that I didn't want to just say, hunt them like you would a Rocky Mountain. And so I've spent the last 2 seasons hunting Roosevelt elk, and we're going back again for a third season this year, just to gain that experience to be able to say, okay, here are the differences. I've hunted for 35 years for Rocky Mountain elk. Here's what I had to do different for Roosevelt. So we talk about the terrain. That's probably the biggest difference, just the habitat that they live in. We talk about the challenges that come from hunting Roosevelt that are different than most of your Rocky Mountain elk hunts. And then the tactics that work better for Roosevelt elk. So we added that one's complete and done, and it's live in the course. And then we're just about ready to release a new module on hunting cow elk or antlerless elk. And when you look at it, the post-rut late season rifle hunting is about 80 or 85% of the tags that are issued each year in the different states. Mm-hmm. And the antlerless, there are, I think it's 70% of the animals that are harvested or the tags that are given are antlerless. And those were 2 modules that were left off the initial launch of the course. So definitely trying to make sure we have all the bases covered. And, I think we're close. There's always going to be things to add, but I just, from the beginning, wanted this to be the most comprehensive, the most inclusive, the most just complete resource that an elk hunter could put in their back pocket and use to make them a more efficient weapon, a more efficient piece of gear.
Yeah, there you go. The absolute essential piece of gear is
That's right.
The hunter themselves. So, well, very good. The last thing I wanted to touch on, unless you have anything you want to add on the course.
No, we just updated the app though, and the app now has bookmark capability, so you can clip the page that you're on and go right back to it, so that you don't have to go back through and say, I forget which module I was on or what page I left off on. So we've added that. We've updated all the images and some of the videos in the course, so freshened it up, updated a few sections. We're always updating, which week to hunt. So we have a calendar based on moon phase, based on fall equinox. So that's been updated for 2020. And then, some of the other benefits of the course. The app is a part of it. Everything's included. There's no add-ons, or if you want this, you have to pay more. You get the app. You get discounts from our partners, which includes a 15% discount on your gear orders from the Elk 101 store. So all your elk hunting gear, if you're spending $500 a year on gear, that's whatever, my math isn't good today, but $75 savings or
yeah,
whatever
that
it is
sounds
there.
Good enough.
Yeah, it basically pays for the course, just in that discount. We have a private Facebook group for members only. We're getting ready to do some YouTube live type stuff for members only, some Q&As. So, there's benefits beyond just the course that we're going to try to take care of you and make sure that you're confident and ready for success during elk season.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't want to miss, and I did. So I'm glad you picked it up. Was the discounts with your partners and stuff, because some of those you got backpacks on there. I think Mountain Ops is on there. There's several different companies that you offer discounts with them too. So
Yep.
Um, the last thing I wanted to talk about was yesterday I saw this big giveaway that started showing up on Instagram. You want to touch on that?
Sure. Yeah. So, in addition to just the course, and that, it's always hard. You have to market, and I'm the worst marketer as far as trying to promote something or sell something. I'm just passionate about elk hunting. I want other people to be successful, and so hopefully that's enough. But if it isn't, the discounts on gear, the app, things like that, those are extra incentives. And then every year we try to come up with a promotion where last year we gave away a truck. The year before we gave away $30,000 in elk hunting gear to,
Hmm.
30 different people. And so I thought this year, what can we do that's going to be better than giving away a truck, that's going to be better than giving away gear, which we always give away gear. We have free gear Fridays on our Instagram every Friday pretty much, and
Hmm.
still doing all that. But the number one thing I heard last year was, I'd love to win the truck, but the truck will break down or wear out. Different things will happen. I'd much rather just spend a day hunting with the Elk 101 guys, or I'd rather win an opportunity to go hunting with you guys. And so this year we are giving away an all expenses paid elk hunt for one lucky winner. And I will be there with just a bugle tube in my hand. No, I won't be hunting. I'm just going to call for 5 days and share the experiences I've learned, and most of them have come through failure, but share those experiences and just be there to hopefully call in an elk for someone. So they can enter that. Just go to elk101.com and you just enter your name and email address and you get a free entry. The incentive, though, is if you sign up for the online course during the promotion, which ends on June 30th, but if you sign up between now and June 30th, you get 20 extra entries to win that elk hunt giveaway.
Can they use the rookies promo code and still be entered? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any code they use, they get entered. It's just if you sign up for the course during the month of June, basically, you're entered with those 20 entries. So, yep, the rookies code gets you $20 off when you sign up, get you 20 entries, get you immediate access to the course.
Awesome. That is awesome. Well, that is going to be one lucky winner for sure.
It'll be
So,
fun. I'm excited. I love spending that time, and I just hope it's, my ideal person to hunt with would be someone who's never killed an elk before. Maybe they've been a time or two and they've gone through some frustrations and they just want to get that monkey off their back.
hmm,
Somebody that's in shape, ready to go, can go after it and hunt hard, and still smile at the end of a 12-mile day and be ready to go the next morning. We're going to do it our style. We're going to stay in a wall tent. We're going to camp right out there on the mountain. We had the option of, going to like a lodge type of a hunt. And I said, no, if we're going to do it, let's do it like we hunt. And so it'll be a little bit different, to keep inside the legalities and everything. We have to do it on private land just to make sure we're covered by the outfitting. We don't have to do it on private land. We have to do it through an outfitter, and doing that through private land is just a much easier thing to facilitate. So it will be a private land hunt through an outfitter, but I get to be the guide and we get to run and gun and hunt elk like I love to hunt elk.
that's going to be awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, Corey, I appreciate you coming on and definitely sharing everything about the University of Elk Hunting. For those listening or watching, don't forget you can use the code rookies and you save $20 on the course, and then you get those 20 entries if you join before June 30th. So thanks again, Corey, for coming on and sharing some of that, a little bit of that knowledge, and then they need to go sign up if they want all of it, right?
That's right. We saved a couple nuggets there.
Yeah, right, right, right. Well, good
Uh,
deal.
Thanks for
Thank,
having me on.
yeah, you bet, you bet.